The date was October 11th, 2024. Static hissed. Then a familiar voice, gravelly and urgent, cut through the interdimensional frequencies. "This is Winston Churchill," he began, his tone grave. "I speak to you now from a place far from London, a place under siege. The Ninth Realm is falling. The forces of a resurgent German Reich, armed with terrible new weapons, are pushing through the territories. They aim to control a crystal here. That has the ability to open up a portal to our reality. If they succeed, all realms will be threatened by their dark ambition and twisted ideology." Churchill's voice, though strained, carried its signature defiance. "The Kitsuna warriors of the shogunates, traditional guardians of the sacred groves, fight bravely. They fight with claw and spirit fire, but they are outnumbered. They are outgunned. I implore any who can hear this message, any who value freedom. The Ninth Realm needs aid before it is too late." The Ninth Realm in question was a breathtaking spectacle, or it had been. Now it was a canvas of conflict. Imagine a world bathed in an eternal soft twilight. Towering crystalline trees pulsed with gentle inner light, their roots delving deep into soil rich with magical energies. Rivers of liquid starlight flowed through valleys carpeted with iridescent moss. The very air thrummed with ancient songs. This was the domain of the Lyosalfar, the light elves, beings of grace and artistry. Their cities, like shimmering mirages, were built in harmony with nature, their architecture a blend of organic curves and precise, glowing geometry. They were masters of light magic, weaving illusions and healing energies. But Alfheim was also a realm of duality. Beyond the radiant plains lay the shadowed forests and subterranean kingdoms of the Svartalfar, the Dark Elves. These were master craftsmen and shrewd tacticians, their magic more grounded, more concerned with metal and shadow. For eons, light and dark elves had maintained a delicate, often contentious balance. Their territories shifted like desert sands, influenced by celestial alignments and the flow of Alfheim's unique, dualistic energy. The Lake of Light, a vast, shimmering expanse, often served as a neutral meeting ground, its waters reflecting both the illuminated sky and the shadowed depths, a symbol of their intertwined destinies. Into this ancient dance of light and shadow came the Kitsuna. These were fox spirits, immigrants from a distant Shinto-influenced reality who had found refuge and purpose in Alfheim centuries ago. They were fierce warriors, deeply connected to nature spirits, wielding both elegant blades and potent illusionary magic known as kitsunebi or foxfire. With their multiple tails signifying their age and power, they had become the sworn protectors of Alfheim's most sacred sites, the guardians of its spiritual heart. They lived in secluded villages, nestled in hidden valleys, their architecture a graceful fusion of their homeland's style and Alfheim's ethereal materials. The current conflict, however, had shattered Alfheim's delicate equilibrium. The German invasion, originating from a dark portal torn open near the Obsidian Peaks, cared nothing for ancient traditions or spiritual sanctity. They saw only resources to be exploited and a strategic foothold to be secured. The Light Elves, unaccustomed to such brutal, industrialized warfare, were reeling. The Dark Elves, initially wary, were beginning to realize the Germans were a threat to them as well. The Kitsuna, bound by their oaths and their inherent warrior spirit, found themselves on the front lines, their ancestral lands now scarred by trenches and the stench of diesel fumes mixing with the scent of pine and magic. The German army that had pierced the veil into Alfheim was a terrifying fusion of earthly military doctrine and something far more sinister. Their stormtroopers, clad in dark grey, rune-etched armour, marched with chilling precision. Their helmets, reminiscent of ancient Teutonic knights, but fitted with glowing visors, hid faces hardened by interdimensional campaigns. They carried energy rifles that spat bolts of crackling disruptive force, capable of tearing through elven light shields and Kitsuna illusions alike. Leading their charge were monstrous machines, their charging assault Sorata tanks, as they were chillingly named, behemoths of steel and dark sorcery. These war machines, belching black smoke that choked the magical air of Alfheim, rumbled across the once pristine landscapes. Their main cannons fired shells imbued with negative energy, leaving craters that radiated a palpable cold and despair, poisoning the very land. Overhead, Stuka dive bombers, their designs twisted into more menacing hawk-like forms adorned with iron crosses, screamed through the twilight skies. They dropped not just conventional explosives, but also canisters of alchemical gas that confused senses and weakened magical abilities. The German strategy was clear shock, awe, and overwhelming firepower to break the spirit of Alfheim's defenders quickly and decisively. Their current objective was the Temple of Freya, situated on an island in the vast Lake of Light. This temple was not just a holy site, it was a convergence point for Alfheim's ley lines, a place of immense magical power. The German High Command, led by the ruthless Generaloberst Klaus von Richter, believed that by capturing and corrupting the temple, they could sever the Light Elves' connection to Alfheim's positive energies and perhaps even manipulate the Bifrost energies that occasionally manifested nearby. Their forward elements had already established a beachhead on the lake's western shore, their iron pontoon bridges stretching like ugly scars across the shimmering water. The Kitsune and the remaining Light Elf militias fought with desperate courage. Ambushes were common in the Crystal Forests. Kitsune warriors, moving like ghosts, would strike at German patrols, their enchanted katanas clashing against energized bayonets. Light Elf mages conjured barriers of pure light only to see them shatter under concentrated artillery fire. But the Germans were relentless. They had adapted their tactics, using powerful sonic emitters to disrupt Kitsune illusions and deploying specialized units, the Hexenjagers, trained to counter magical defenses. The air around the Lake of Light grew heavy with the smell of ozone, burnt magic and despair as the Iron Eagles cast long shadows.
We must maintain our momentum. The Temple of Freya is within our grasp. Once we control it, Alfheim will fall, and the Bifrost Nexus will be ours.
Back on Earth, in the heavily guarded White House war room, the atmosphere was thick with tension. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, his face etched with the strain of leadership in perilous times, listened intently to the crackling remnants of Churchill's broadcast. Around the polished mahogany table sat his top advisors, stern-faced generals, wary diplomats, and sharp-eyed intelligence chiefs. The news from the Ninth Realm, another damn otherworldly crisis, was an unwelcome addition to an already overflowing platter of global concerns. The United States was still navigating a complex post-W2 geopolitical landscape, even in this altered timeline of 2024.
Another plea for intervention, he stated, his voice betraying a deep weariness. The Kitsune, Japanese fox spirits, if I understand correctly, fighting Germans, again, but these Germans are from where exactly? And this Ninth Realm? Alfheim. It sounds like something out of a Wagner opera, not a strategic priority for the United States of America. He looked at his Secretary of State. What are our current obligations, if any, to these Kitsune? Or to Mr. Churchill, broadcasting from Valhalla or wherever he's ended up this time?
The Secretary of State, a cautious man named Alistair Finch, cleared his throat. Mr. President, our official treaties do not extend to trans-dimensional entities like the Kitsune. While we acknowledge the existence of these other realms and Mr. Churchill's unique situation, our primary responsibility remains the security and prosperity of the American people on this earth. Committing resources to a conflict in Alfheim against a technologically advanced and seemingly ruthless German force of unknown origin carries immense risks. We have no clear intelligence on their full capabilities or their ultimate goals beyond what Churchill has reported. A general from the Joint Chiefs spoke up, his voice firm. Sir, any German military force, regardless of its dimension of origin, displaying such aggressive expansionism is a concern. However, direct military involvement is a Pandora's box. We don't know the rules of engagement in this Ninth Realm. We don't understand their physics, their magic. Our boys would be going in blind. Furthermore, public support for another war, especially one so esoteric, would be incredibly difficult to garner. We risk overextending ourselves, neglecting threats closer to home for a cause that many would deem fantastical, if not outright unbelievable. Roosevelt nodded slowly, the weight of the world, and perhaps other worlds, resting heavily on his shoulders.
He had been listening quietly, his knuckles white as he gripped his briefing papers, waiting for his chance to speak for those who could not be present. He understood what was at stake. He had met the Kitsuna. He had been to Alfheim. He looked less like a seasoned diplomat and more like a slightly rumpled university professor, but his eyes held a fierce conviction. Zach was an anomaly, a historian and linguist who had stumbled into interdimensional diplomacy.
Into this cauldron of doubt and deliberation stepped War Room Ambassador to Otherworldly Affairs, Zachary Zach Thornton.
Mr. President, gentlemen.
Zach began, his voice clear and steady, cutting through the skepticism.
If they secure Alfheim, particularly the Bifrost Nexus Churchill mentioned, they gain a strategic launching pad unlike any we have ever conceived. The Germans operating there are not simply Wagnerian enthusiasts. They are a disciplined, technologically advanced force with a clear expansionist agenda. Its energies are connected to the stability of multiple realities, including pathways that could, theoretically, lead back to our own Earth. Alfheim is a linchpin. With all due respect, this is not merely a fantastical skirmish in some faraway fairyland. They showed the German war machines, the environmental devastation, and the desperate faces of Kitsuna refugees.
He laid a series of reconnaissance photos, magically enhanced images smuggled out by a light elf scout, on the table.
These are the Kitsune,
Zach said, his finger tapping a photo of a young fox spirit warrior, her face smudged with dirt and ash but her eyes blazing with defiance.
We have an opportunity here to support a brave ally, to contain a dangerous threat far from our own shores, and to learn more about the forces now at play in these wider circles of existence. And when do these Reichsritter, as some reports call them, turn their attention towards an Earth they might see as ripe for conquest? If Alfheim falls, which realm is next? Think of it in terms of the domino theory, Mr. President. It would be an abdication of responsibility, not just to the Kitsuna, but to the broader stability of the interdimensional order, fragile as it is. To ignore their plight, to dismiss Churchill's warning, would be a grave error. They are fighting for their homes, their culture, their very existence. They are not just fox spirits. They are an ancient people, honorable, fiercely loyal, and currently the only significant force standing between von Richter's army and total domination of that realm.
His plea hung in the air, a desperate gamble for the soul of a distant world. Just as Ambassador Thornton's words seemed to be met with a wall of pragmatic silence, the heavy oak doors of the war room creaked open. All heads turned. Standing in the doorway was an unexpected figure. He was an elderly Kitsuna, his fur the color of winter frost, tinged with silver. 9 foxtails, each tipped with a faint ethereal blue flame, swayed gently behind him. He wore simple, traditional robes, but his posture was erect, and his golden eyes, ancient and wise, surveyed the room with a calm intensity. This was Yoshi-Zoku, a name whispered with reverence among his people, a veteran of countless skirmishes and a master strategist. Yoshi-Zoku had not been formally invited. He had used his own subtle arts, a whisper on the wind, a shadow in the corner, to find his way here, sensing the urgency of the moment. He bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect, yet carrying an undeniable aura of authority.
Forgive my intrusion, honorable leaders of this earthly realm. I am Yoshi-Zoku of the Inari Kitsune clan. I have come because the fate of my people, and perhaps much more, hangs precariously in the balance, like a dewdrop on a spider's silk.
President Roosevelt, initially startled, quickly regained his composure.
Mr. Zoku, you have excellent timing, or perhaps excellent intelligence.
The wind carries many secrets, President, and the desperate prayers of a people can travel far.
He stepped further into the room, his presence commanding a strange sort of attention. He was old, ancient, even by Kitsune standards. A living relic from a time when magic was more potent, before the Iron Age of Earth had begun to cast its long shadow across the realms.
Ambassador Thornton speaks with a true heart and a clear mind. He understands that the invaders in Alfheim are not merely soldiers. They are harbingers of a philosophy that seeks to dominate, to homogenize, to extinguish the diverse lights of creation. We Kitsune have fought such shadows before, in other forms, across other ages. We know their hunger. We also know their weaknesses.
He paused, letting his words sink in.
But our ancient arts, Our connection to the spirits of Alfheim are strained against their machines of cold iron and their soulless logic. We need more than just courage now. We need allies who understand the value of what is being threatened.
The arrival of Yoshizoku shifted the atmosphere in the war room. It was one thing to discuss fox spirits in the abstract. It was quite another to have a nine-tailed elder statesman standing before them, radiating ancient wisdom and quiet power. President Roosevelt leaned forward, his earlier skepticism giving way to a cautious intrigue.
Mr. Zoku, you mentioned weaknesses. What weaknesses do these German forces possess that we or you might exploit? General Oberst von Richter seems to have a rather effective strategy of overwhelming force. Our reports suggest your people are suffering heavy losses.
Yoshizoku nodded slowly, his gaze thoughtful.
Their strength, President, is also their rigidity. They rely on intricate plans, on technological superiority, on a chain of command that brooks no deviation. They are powerful in open battle, yes, but Alfheim is a land of hidden paths, of shifting mists, of unpredictable magic. Their machines hunger for energies that are not native to that realm, requiring constant resupply through their unstable portal. Their minds, so focused on conquest, are less attuned to the subtle currents of Alfheim's spirit, making them vulnerable to deceptions that play on their arrogance and their lack of true understanding of the land they seek to conquer.
Ambassador Thornton seized the opening.
Sir, what Mr. Zoku is describing aligns with some of our theoretical counter-strategies. If we could provide the Kitsuna with certain specialized equipment, perhaps advanced communication gear, targeting assistance for their magical attacks, even limited air support focused on disrupting their supply lines rather than direct engagement, it could significantly alter the battlefield dynamics. We wouldn't be committing ground troops but offering a force multiplier, enabling the Kitsune's unique abilities to be more effective against a technologically superior foe. A momentous shift in their capabilities, if you will.
One of the generals grumbled.
Supplying sophisticated weaponry to non-human entities? The oversight alone would be a nightmare. What if it falls into the wrong hands, or is used against us later?
Yoshizoku's golden eyes met the general's.
My people value honor above all, General. The weapons of our allies are sacred trusts. We seek only to defend our homes, to preserve the balance. We have no desire for conquest, only for peace to return to Alfheim's shores. Our fight is with von Richter's forces, not with those who would extend a hand of friendship in our darkest hour. We offer not just a request for aid, but an alliance of mutual respect.
The sincerity in his voice was palpable, cutting through the layers of political calculation. After hours of intense debate, fueled by Yoshizoku's compelling testimony and Ambassador Thornton's persistent advocacy, President Roosevelt finally made his decision. It was a compromise, a careful balancing act.
All right, we will not commit American boots on the ground in Alfheim. That line we will not cross. However, we cannot stand idly by while a force like this attempts to seize control of a realm with such strategic implications. However unusual those implications may be, we will provide limited, deniable support. Operation Kitsune's Dawn is a go.
A collective sigh, a mixture of relief and apprehension, went through the room. The plan was multifaceted. The US would provide advanced encrypted communication arrays, allowing the scattered Kitsuna warbands and light elf militias to coordinate their efforts effectively across Alfheim's challenging terrain. They would also supply specialized targeting goggles designed to help Kitsune mages focus their attacks with greater precision against the weak points of German armor. Furthermore, a squadron of experimental, stealth-equipped reconnaissance drones capable of interdimensional travel would be deployed to gather intelligence on German movements and supply routes. Data which would be relayed directly to Yoshizoku's command. Yoshizoku listened intently, his tails twitching almost imperceptibly.
This aid, President Roosevelt, will be the wind beneath our wings. With this, we can turn their reliance on technology against them. We will use your eyes in the sky to guide our shadows on the ground. The Kitsune are masters of guerrilla warfare, of hit-and-run tactics. We will bleed them in the forests, disrupt their supply lines through the mountain passes, and use our knowledge of Alfheim's secret ways to lead them into ambushes where their heavy armor becomes a liability, not an asset.
The strategic planning sessions that followed were a strange but effective blend of ancient Kitsuna wisdom and modern military doctrine. Yoshizoku, with his centuries of experience, outlined key spiritual nexuses that, if protected or reclaimed, could bolster Alfheim's natural defenses and demoralize the spiritually blind invaders. American strategists, using the fresh drone intelligence, helped identify logistical choke points in the German advance towards the Temple of Freya. The objective became clear: delay and attrit von Richter's forces, buying time for a more unified Alfheim resistance to form and perhaps, just perhaps, turn the tide at the Lake of Light. The dawn of a new kind of warfare was breaking. The climactic battle for the Temple of Freya erupted on the shores of the Lake of Light just as Alfheim's twin moons cast their ethereal glow. Generaloberst von Richter launched a full-scale assault, believing his tanks and artillery would swiftly crush the defenders. He underestimated the resilience of the Kitsune and the impact of Operation Kitsune's Dawn. Yoshiizoku orchestrated a masterful defense, turning the crystalline shores into a deadly trap. Kitsune illusionists wove intricate phantasms, leading German tanks into traps. Entire German tank columns plunged into magically concealed chasms or deep sections of the lake. Foxfire erupted with pinpoint accuracy, striking exposed fuel lines and vulnerable joints. Light elf archers rained down from the crystalline spires, picking off German officers. The Germans' rigid formations broke under the chaotic fluid attacks. Yoshiizoku himself was a whirlwind of silver fur and blue flame. Armed with an ancient katana, he moved through the battlefield like a phantom. He dueled a hulking Hexenjäger commander atop a disabled Sorata. With a final decisive blow, he shattered the commander's runic defenses. The battle raged for hours, the beautiful landscape around the Lake of Light becoming a scarred testament to the ferocity of the fighting. Ultimately, the German assault faltered. Their supply lines, harassed relentlessly by Kitsune raiders, failed to deliver crucial reinforcements. Von Richter, witnessing his elite forces being systematically dismantled, was forced into a humiliating retreat. The Temple of Freya remained free. Though the war for Alfheim was far from over, a crucial victory had been won. The Kitsune, with a timely intervention from an unlikely ally, had proven that courage and cunning could stand against mechanized might. Alfheim had a fighting chance, its spirit rekindled by the fires of resistance. Deep within the bowels of the Reich Chancellery, the air was thick with desperation and the acrid smell of cigarette smoke. Adolf Hitler, his face a mask of fury and frustration, stood at the head of a large oak table, surrounded by his closest advisors. The bunker walls seemed to close in as they pored over detailed maps of the Ninth Realm's desert region. Hitler's voice cut through the silence, sharp and commanding.
We cannot afford another defeat like Alfheim. Our forces must regroup and strike with renewed ferocity. The desert of the Ninth Realm holds the key to our domination. General Jodl, pointing to key positions on the map, outlined their next steps. Mein Führer, we have identified several strategic points that, if captured, will cripple the resistance and give us control of the vital supply routes. Our panzers and infantry will launch a three-pronged assault at dawn. Hitler's eyes gleamed with a manic intensity. This is our last chance to turn the tide. Failure is not an option. The desert will be ours, and with it, the gateway to ultimate victory. The advisors nodded, their faces grim but determined.
The urgency in the room was palpable, each man fully aware of the stakes. The fate of the Reich hung in the balance, and the next move would decide their destiny. As the plans were finalized, the bunker hummed with a renewed sense of purpose. The countdown to the desert offensive had begun, setting the stage for another fierce and pivotal confrontation in the sprawling saga of the Ninth Realm.
Thank you guys so much for watching all the way till the end of the video. But before we actually end the video, I just want to ask for a small donation. Any amount is fine. $10, $20, $30. Just any amount of donation will be fine. So, with that being said, I'll see you guys in the pack. Peace!